Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be reading r/ProRevenge. Our first post. Ruined a shit housemate's life. So I moved into a 4-bedroom uni house. I need 2 of my housemates. Let's call them Abby and Ben. Due to unfortunate circumstances, our previously planned roommate didn't live with us. So we found a new one, Chloe. Chloe is a horrible housemate. This becomes apparent when they never pay any bills or rent on time. Smoke like a chimney inside, against our agreement. Leaves home for a few days, leaving a big pile of washing up for us to do, including our pots and pans. Scream gaming on their laptop all the way till 5 a.m. Walls are thin, just to name a few things. Basically, they suck. So it gets about 4 months in. We cannot stand her. So have a house meeting. Basically, we all just sit there and try to explain how we prefer they don't scream at their laptop. I assume gaming until 5 a.m. Every night as all of us get up early. Everything we bring up, she denies it. We have each lent her a month's rent and bills too, and she hasn't paid any of us back. Over $1,000 between us. She denied it, saying she doesn't owe us. This point, we're all pretty pissed. Then a few weeks later was Saturday night, and being students, Abby, Ben, and me invited a few friends around for pre-drinks. We asked Chloe first, and they said they'd be out, so that's fine. Turns out they finished work early, so they came home and were shocked to find people there. Went up to their room. They kept coming down and turning the music down. It wasn't even loud in the first place. She got so angry she threw my speaker out the window. I didn't see her do it, but loads of people told me so. I had enough and I went to go get my speaker. She came with me to my surprise. And as she left, I could see her key my car. And as she left in full visibility of me, keyed my car on the driveway. I got up with my speaker and shouting at her as she walked off. Luckily, we have an automatic light on the side of the house. And a car was driving down my road at the time, and the driver said they had a dash cam and probably caught it out the window to me. I stopped shouting in disbelief and gave him my email address. Went about my night enjoying the party. When it was time to leave, a lot of us hadn't finished our alcohol, so we left it on the kitchen table and left. When we got back the next day and sobered up in the morning, we found all the alcohol had been taken along with the speaker, some headphones, and my laptop. Now I was pretty pissed. The revenge. I logged into my housemate's laptop on my email. This guy pulled through, sent me a small clip of her keying my car, along with several close-ups still showing the key in contact. I first emailed Chloe asking if she knew where my stuff was, while Abby and Ben secretly recorded on their phones. Things got heated and they looked like they were going to fight me. I'm a big guy, 6'4", and I'm not really scared. I'm basically just pissing her off out of pure frustration. Chloe then swung her fist at me a few times, making contact. I didn't fight back. I put my hands and arms over my head and face, and then she stomped off thinking she won. Let me remind you, Abby and Ben were recording. I call the police, they show up. I basically say I have a good reason to believe Chloe stole my alcohol and other possessions. They go up and knock on her door. She tells them to go away. They can't go in without a search warrant. I file a report about assault, and the things stolen relating the two. The police are very nice and basically tell me how to fill it in. They come back the next day with an award for her arrest for assault and battery. They then search her room and find all the stolen alcohol bottles, my headphones which were clearly mine, as they only paired with my phone, my laptop, and my damaged speaker. I sued her and won. I had indisputable evidence along with witnesses for all of the events. I got $3,000 for the car, speaker, and rent she owed us, and an additional $5,000. She went to prison for resisting arrest, assaulting a police officer, assault, destruction of property, and theft and battery. She still had to pay rent for her room, which we used as a gym. She totally did all of this herself. She caused every single one of these events. Mr. B&W got what he had coming. About 15 years ago, I enjoyed blowing my money on modifying my truck, starting off with basic loudspeaker systems and wheels, but eventually deciding to lower it some. Since I lived in an area that had pretty poor road quality, I decided to go balls deep and spending entirely too much money to get air suspension installed, so I could go over speed bumps and potholes without much issue. Being a foolish kid, I enjoyed playing with the suspension setting, including laying the entire truck on the ground when parking and even at streetlights. It received tons of attention, and again, being a dumb kid, I enjoyed that attention. I drove my truck daily to work and lived only 4 miles from my place of employment. Within that 4 miles, 2 miles of it consisted of driving on a major highway. Shortly after having my truck lowered, the state decided to resurface the highway. The highway was covered in gravel and asphalt, with cones all over and signs to slow down. So driving slow was really the only option if you didn't want to kick up some rocks and trash. I was cautiously and carefully going along the highway with the suspension raised up. in hopes of keeping rocks and tar off my paint. About a quarter of the mile to the exit towards my work, I noticed in my rear view a black BMW flying up behind me, and I was actually worried the driver didn't see me as he was approaching so fast on my ass. The section of the highway with the exit split into 3 lanes for the small portion to allow exiting traffic to not congest the rest of the highway, so there was no real way for him to pass. He rode my ass very close, to the point I could no longer see his headlights. He was revving his little motor, flashing his lights, and being a general douche nozzle. There was nothing I could do, and a normal person would notice there was nothing I could do. Speeding in a construction zone equals double fines, but this asshole was not having any of that. I knew I would have to start slowing down soon as there was a stoplight not far ahead after the exit, but feared tapping the brakes at all since he would likely slam into the rear of my truck. I decided I only had one choice when it came to getting Mr. BMW off my bumper. I raised the front of the truck, lowered the rear end, and started dragging my bumper along the highway. I never normally drag my truck, but this day I decided to send it for the boys. As soon as the bumper met the road, all of the fresh gravel and asphalt blasted Mr. BMW's hood like a cannon filled with grape shot. I watched as he slammed on his brakes, trying to make the largest gap so he could get away from the rain of hell I provided him with. Unfortunately, behind him was a large Rage Ford F-35 truck that plowed into the rear end of his BMW, sending him searing off the highway. At the time, I was unaware of any rules/laws stating you're not supposed to leave the scene of the accident. Again, I was so dumb. So I simply leveled out the submission and finished my commute to work. I never found out what ended up happening after I left, but I could only imagine what the BMW driver said when trying to explain to the police what happened. My manager was an awful person to me, but I got her fired in an embarrassing fashion. Years ago, shortly after I graduated high school, I got a new job to support myself during college. The new gig was in a pet store, and I was working in the department that sold the fish, aquariums, reptiles, and birds, etc. The store manager was an awesome guy who I'll call Kurt. Kurt was an old school guy. He went to work, worked hard, and went home. That's all he expected out of you as well. My immediate manager over the department was this large snaggletooth witch of a woman. I'll call her Stephanie. We got off to a bad start because she quickly found out I knew more about reptiles than her. She preferred the fish, whereas I kept snakes for the past 4 to 5 years. Her ego couldn't handle a fresh employee not needing her guidance. From then on, she was terrible to me. She singled me out to clean the goldfish tanks and had the other employees cover sales every day I worked. She would say rude things to me such as, "You are the weak link in my team. You are the reason I'm having problems in this department." Fast forward about a year, my hours had been cut by 25%. I asked the store manager what the deal was, and he told me our department had lost too much money between lack of sales and broken merchandise, etc. This puzzled me, but I didn't think much of it because everyone's hours were cut. Simultaneously, myself and a few coworkers had noticed something strange. Stephanie had recently taken much more interest in the customers. She insisted on helping certain customers and sending us to do busy work where they were here. A customer came in one evening and was talking to us about how nice Stephanie is. Turns out Stephanie was breeding mice and selling them to the customers outside of the store. We found out she was breeding all of her animals, her dogs, turtles, mice, and selling them to customers she met through our store. Not only was this taking business from us, our store had a couple corporate policies. We did not feed nor sell mice as live food for snakes, and we donated a lot of time and money to shelters, and we condemned breeding dogs and cats for sales. Stephanie was making money by selling animals to customers, all while her department had hours cut for all of its employees. It didn't quite make sense. How was this costing us so much money? Until one evening, I thought I had figured it out. Stephanie was otherwise a lazy woman, but when one of her customers came in, she was by their side the whole time. I watched closely as she followed a customer around, helping them pick out a cart full of expensive aquarium decorations and supplies like lights and bulbs. I followed and wrote down every item she grabbed. I wanted to see where this went. She directed the customer to a register and went to check them out. She's lazy and would never do this for any other customers. I noted the time and went back to work. I later spoke to other cashiers about Stephanie checking customers out, and they said she only did it with certain customers, and she acted weird when they did it. They suspected she was abusing coupons for them or applying hefty discounts. I got my coworkers to corroborate my story about the under-the-table animal sales and suspicious behavior, and I went to talk to Kurt. I handed him a paper with about 20 upsies and the time written on it, and said, "I think if you look up a transaction from Register 2 at this time, last night, you'll find a large discount applied to it. These are the items I expect you to find on that transaction." He was a bit puzzled, and I explained everything to him. I told him I didn't want to make any accusations before because I wasn't sure, but after seeing her in action, I'm pretty sure something was going on. He thanked me and assured he would look into it. A couple weeks later, I was at work and noticed Kurt was standing near the door watching closely. It just so happens that Stephanie was coming in for her shift right about that time. The second she walked through the door, he called her over to his office. Apparently, waiting in his office was a regional manager from corporate. He looked at the list I gave him and looked up transactions from the night before. He found one at the exact time I wrote, but only about half of the items I listed. But every item that was on that receipt was on the list I gave him. This prompted him to watch her for a few weeks. And in that time frame, they found her to be taking customers around shopping, personally taking them up to the register, and scanning every other item and putting the expensive stuff into the cart without ringing it up. In that time span, she had given away over $1,500 in merchandise. And he looked back at the logs we keep for the broken merchandise that is written off and found an excessive amount of aquarium supplies and decorations that were signed off by her. It was something like 1,000% more written off broken merchandise than was found at the exact same time last quarter. All in all, she was charged with stealing and defrauding the store. And it just so happened that Kurt had already arranged for the police to meet them after firing her to escort her out. I don't know if she went to jail, but I did watch her get walked out by the police with about 20 employees staring. I wish I could have said something, but I had to settle for her making eye contact with me as she walked out, to which I gave her a quick wink. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe for more awesome content and have a great day.